Hi, I'm Alexi Toliopoulos, and this week on The Filter, we're going to be talking about filmmaking, but not just any type of filmmaking, smartphone filmmaking.
This is how you turn it on.
It's a revolution.
It's been just over 10 years since the first iPhone, and in that time, we've reached a point where the vast majority of video currently viewed has been shot on a smartphone. And here's the thing, it's not all cat videos and TikTok buffoonery. There are now smartphone film festivals with sophisticated amateur work. There are also high-profile, artistically ambitious feature films shot with smartphones. This includes Sean Baker's breakthrough 2015 film Tangerine and Steven Soderbergh's recent Unsane.
Supposed to be so.
Even the good old ABC has just released the first ever scripted series set entirely within a smartphone. So are we witnessing the dawn of an exciting new era of truly democratic filmmaking? Joining me to discuss are Alison Crew, founder of Australia's first smartphone film festival. Jason Von Genderen is a producer and media presenter who won a whole bunch of awards back in 2008 for his first smartphone film, then went on to start a whole new smartphone uprising he calls the Film Breaker movement. And Joel Pearlgut is a filmmaker who has worked with traditional video cameras before, but chose to shoot his directorial debut short film on, you guessed it, a smartphone. Whenever I think about this, I think about this quote that Francis Ford Coppola had in Hearts of Darkness, where he said some little 8-year-old girl in Ohio is going to make a masterpiece and be the next Mozart using a little camera that her father owns, and it's going to destroy filmmaking forever and it's going to become a true art form. I feel like right now smartphone filmmaking has made that quote come true.
It's making filmmaking accessible to everybody who's got a story to tell. They can now do it through film because they've got access to that camera. It's in their pocket, it's at their fingertips. It's not only accessible, it's affordable as well. It's making filmmaking really affordable for anyone who's got that spark of an idea and their unique story to tell.
A lot of people, when they consider filmmaking to be an art form, they think of like the aesthetic beauty of it all. Do you think we're there yet in making it look as good as like traditional cameras?
I think that's probably one of the big hinge points too, is people are constantly trying to compare smartphone filmmaking with other cameras. But every camera that comes out has its own look, its own reason for being. And you know, our smartphones are creating their own visual style in storytelling. And having said that, you can accessorize your smartphone now with lenses, and I mean, we've got a big, what have we got here, telephoto conversion lens on the front of this one here. That gives us 3 times telephoto optics on our phone. So we can crunch in on a shot, we can get that beautiful soft drizzly focus in the background at shallow depth of field. We can achieve those things, we can mimic other camera effects if we want to, but you know, as a primitive tool, the phone has its own look as well, which is worth celebrating.
And Joel, you just had your directorial debut with a short film, Sad Sax, and you chose to shoot it on a smartphone. What was it that made you make that decision?
I think like a big one was like a very pragmatic concern of like space. We were shooting like a lot in a car, which can be real death for a filmmaker, particularly when you're using like a big camera, blocking off roads, and the iPhone meant that we could do that really easily. But I think more than that, it was like after Tangerine, we were really inspired by Sean Baker just going out and making this film that didn't necessarily draw attention to the fact that it was shot on an iPhone, but that was fundamental to how it got made, and knew that we could use it in our own film and kind of play with that aesthetic. I think it's interesting, this idea of like the smartphone as its kind of own sort of genre. I think that's kind of maybe where the smartphone is heading to in terms of how it's going to be used in cinema. Like I saw in Free Fire, the Ben Wheatley film that came out not too long ago, he used an iPhone in a few like key stunt shots where he couldn't otherwise get like a bigger camera, and I thought that was like a really clever use of it that wasn't necessarily like drawing full attention to it.
There's actually a lot of instances in productions that we watch on television every day, on big network shows and big films, where I've heard a lot of production managers and a lot of cinematographers say that they've dropped in a quick smartphone shot just to get a shot.
And who would know? The majority of people would see a film on a big screen in the cinema shot on a smartphone and they wouldn't know the difference.
It's indistinguishable.
We screened a feature film for the first time as part of our festival this year, Blue Moon by Stephen Harris.
Staggering.
He shot that feature film on a budget of 12,000 New Zealand dollars, and it looked phenomenal on the big screen, and he actually believes that within a couple of years it will be unremarkable that films are shot on a smartphone.
Turn around and face the wall.
I've got too much to lose. You do not have to do this.
Just
I swear
turn
I
around.
Do you think there is a chance that we'll see big budget films being shot with smartphones as well?
I don't think studios are going to embrace that system, if I put it that way. And I think that's probably one of the big barriers, is from an industry perspective, from a creative arts perspective and a filmmaking industry, we still think to drive on the freeway, you need to have an F1 Formula car. We still haven't switched our headset around to thinking that we can still use primitive tools or simple cameras. We say simple, small cameras with high tech in it to tell big stories. And that is possible. And I think you will find that bigger stories are going to get told with smaller cameras. We're seeing it now. It's evolution of that trend. We've gone from big cinematic film cameras to tape-based video cameras to DSLRs to micro cameras now. It's part of the ecosystem of storytelling now that smaller cameras have a place and a home within that.
Yeah, I would say that you'll see smartphones being used like for bits and pieces of like, larger budget films. But I mean, smartphones are fundamentally limited. It doesn't have the dynamic range of like a big cinema camera, which just mean they're not practical for like, spending a lot of money, like where, you need like amazing coverage on your massive stunt that you're pouring millions of dollars into. So,
You get like 20 phones to film it, see?
And it won't cost you millions of dollars to do this stuff.
This was an interesting thing actually, because we had, we needed a few phones to actually shoot the film, like to the point where, we were using 3 iPhones. And the cost of 3 iPhones is, of course, like, about approximately a cinema camera, like a low-end Blackmagic or something, right? So, yeah, they do have costs as well. And, once you add on the tech and stuff, and, like, someone who knows how to use it, it's not, I don't think, we're any ways of, like, replacing cinema cameras with iPhones.
But it's opening up the art of storytelling through film to, again, I bring it back to the point, it's opening up to everybody. It's empowering people to tell their stories, and that is having a big effect on some people as well. Someone who has entered our festival for the last few years, he's battled with depression for a very long time, and he actually said to us at the end of the festival this year that it's literally saved his life. The power of storytelling and having access to be able to do it on his phone so simply and easily. It's had that profound impact on his life.
That's incredible. Are you also talking about, you've seen like lots of junior filmmakers as well. Can you talk a bit about that? Because I find that fascinating as someone who didn't have access to that stuff as a young filmmaker.
Well, I think kids are so tech savvy now. They've grown up with these things in their hands.
They're teaching us how to use it.
Exactly. They've got their own YouTube channels. They're walking around with the camera going on their phones all the time. But
seeing a toddler swipe fascinates me.
Yeah, that's right.
I cannot believe it still, how natural it is.
Yeah, but we've got our SF3 Kids category, and some of the kids' films coming through are incredible. I mean, the creativity of children. We had one filmmaker, she's in grade 9, Kate Snashall. She won a couple of awards with her film, and it's the shots that she's taken and the way she's put it together, it's maturity beyond her years, but she's been able to do it. She said, I had an idea for a film and I wanted to film something, so I saw the camera on my phone and thought, I'll just use that.
Living isn't about the bigger things, it's about the little things. It's about those moments that feel like they belong in a movie, those moments that are once in a lifetime. It's about capturing those moments and treasuring them.
But that's a beautiful unfiltered approach to storytelling, which kids embrace so well. Yeah. And so for them, this is not a barrier to them. There's no barrier to entry. It's just a way of getting in. And I think, from my end of the spectrum, I've worked in the industry a long, long time. I've really battled with people every single day to still convince them to maybe even think about shooting something on this. I've built a business on just shooting on phones. That's all we shoot on. We don't have any other cameras. And we accessorise them with lenses and microphones. There's not a lens or a microphone we can't now put on a smartphone.
Can you talk about a bit of the kit that you've got with you today? About how you've kitted this phone up?
Yeah.
Because it's beautiful to me seeing this.
Thank you. I like hearing you say that. I love it. So we've got a really simple little mini tripod. We've got a metal beast cage which sits our iPhone inside. That allows us to then attach things like tripods, wireless audio or wired microphones. We've got accessory lenses we can put on there, we'll put lights on there. And Joel, as you would have experienced when you were shooting Sad Sax for SF3, You know, the small footprint of these cameras now, I mean, you can get them into tighter spaces when you're filming, so interiors of cars, you know, filming in lifts or small rooms and buildings is far more doable because this thing's got such a thin footprint, you can put it right against the wall and continue shooting.
Interesting shots from angles in corners and things. Sean Baker from Tangerine even spoke about that using the smartphone. He could achieve really interesting shots.
Inside an air conditioning vent looking down, you know, you can monitor off an iPad. You can control it from another device, not necessarily the camera. And I think the other thing to this conversation that's interesting is it's the only kind of system we can shoot on where we can also do post-production. And we can publish, you know, like we can do all those things in the one native system, which is kind of interesting.
So I think it's safe to say that smartphone filmmaking has made it accessible. It's torn down the barriers of people being able to make films and tell their own stories. Thank you so much for joining me on The Filter.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Alexi.
No worries. My pleasure. My dream come true. To film.
I know, yeah. Cheers. Thank you.
Smartphone film.